Hello and welcome, everybody. I am the Jaden, and today we've got story time about the time that police took me to the ER when I was as high as a kite. And in the background, we've got some gameplay for you guys to watch as I recite my little tale. If you're not subscribed already, make sure to do that because it's quick, free, and easy, and it really helps out the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. So this story takes place at Creighton University, where I was an economics honors student, and I was a freshman dorming with my roommate at the time. We can call him Dude, and then I also had a girlfriend at the time who we can call Amy. Funnily enough, this was a Friday night, and I was hanging out with my roommate and then my girlfriend, and me and Amy were arguing about weed versus alcohol and which is worse because she wanted to drink more often and I was against that as a recovered alcoholic. And she was also super against weed for personal reasons. And I disagreed with her over that because I had had weed dozens of times through high school very safely, and I had never had any real problems, only positive experiences. And it just so happened that Dude, my roommate, had some Delta 9 synthetic weed gummies that he'd somehow gotten, which, for context, they were legal for us to have in the state of Nebraska and because we were also 19 or about 20 at the time. So since Dude had a Delta 9 gummy, he had just one gummy left. I had a really smart and responsible idea, and I said, "Hey, Amy, look, I will have this weed gummy tonight, and I will show you that weed is fine, and I will have a good time." And then she agreed. So I took half of the gummy, and it was a peach ring gummy, and it was kind of big. I took half of it, and then I waited about an hour and a half. And after waiting the hour and a half, I didn't really feel anything at all. So then I decided to take the other half of the gummy. And you should also know, for context, that it had been a few years since I had last had weed or synthetic weed of any kind. And the gummy that Dude gave me was 50 milligrams of Delta 9. The recommended amount for low tolerance people is 5 to 10 milligrams of Delta 9. For medium tolerance, it's about 10 to 25 milligrams. And for very high tolerance people, it's about 25 milligrams and up. So I took 50 milligrams, which is about two high tolerance doses. I took that in a single gummy as someone who had basically zero tolerance at all because I hadn't had any weed or synthetic weed for years. And also, you should know that Delta 9 gummies take just about 2 hours to kick in, and then they last for 4 to 6 hours. So basically, I fucked myself. As the next few hours passed, Dude went to bed, Amy's friend went to bed. Amy and I tried to go to bed, but I was just starting to come up and get really high. So I had the giggles super bad to where her and I were laughing at basically nothing. We were laughing so hard that my cheeks and my face and my sides all started to really hurt. And hers were hurting really bad too. And I was like literally begging her to stop laughing and to stop making me laugh. But then she said that she couldn't stop because she had basically caught my giggles contagiously, which is a very real thing if you've experienced it. But then pretty soon that didn't matter because the giggles was the least of my problems because I began to enter a whole other level of high that I did not know existed before. We finally got settled down for bed, but it was impossible for me to fall asleep because I was extremely high and paranoid and I started to freak out. Basically, what I was going through is when I would close my eyes, the blackness that I saw, it felt like a freezing, endless ocean of death and dread and paranoia, basically. And then when I would open my eyes, it was also bad because my field of vision was very much like a screen, like a computer monitor. And with every passing moment, it felt like I was sinking deeper and deeper into myself, further and further away from the screen that was my vision. And that made me really start to panic because I thought that I would just sink so far into myself that I would lose my vision screen altogether and I'd kind of be lost in darkness. And at the same time, while all this was going on, it felt like every little nerve in my body was tingling and it almost felt like every little piece of me was a cube, and every second, every cube of me would rotate and then click into place with all the cubes around it. And I know this sounds really dumb, but it's hard to put into words. So these cubes would rotate and click into each other, and every time they would click, click, click into place, I would sink deeper and deeper and deeper. I would feel more cold and more alone and more dead. My nerves and like my body were just these cubes that kept rotating and clicking together, and I was sinking more and more. And what it felt like is it felt like when you're riding a roller coaster and you're kind of going up and it's like clicking, clicking, click, click, click. You're kind of going up to the high point and your stomach kind of rises into your chest. That's kind of a similar feeling, but this just went on and on and on for literally hours straight until eventually I felt like I had sunk so far into myself and I felt so much tension that I literally thought I was dead. I couldn't move, I couldn't talk. All of my consciousness and existence also concentrated into my mouth eventually, which was completely bone dry, and my jaw was clenched really tight. And I remember sitting like that for a really long time because I was terrified that all that I could sense was this click, click, clicking, tension rising, the coldness, the aloneness, intense, super dryness of my mouth, and then this feeling of sinking deeper and deeper into darkness. And that was just hell. I literally thought I was dead. But thankfully, at some point, I shot up out of my bed and I woke Amy up when I did that. And I was in a state of panic. And I said something along the lines of, like, please don't let that happen again, Amy. I thought I just died. And of course, she didn't really know what was going on. And I couldn't really explain to her what was going on because I didn't fully understand it while I was in the state. So I told her, I feel really, 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 really bad right now. Please just give me some help. My heart was beating out of my chest. I was shaking really badly, going through a very, very intense panic attack as a result of this very uncomfortable state that I was in. The room was spinning and I could barely speak or move. I was just trying to kind of stop my body from doing this rising tension, but the rising tension just continued. So then Amy very responsibly called poison control, and that resulted in the cops coming. And then as the cops were on their way, I managed to go to the bathroom and throw up to get any more of the gummy out of my stomach so that I wouldn't get any higher. But I'm assuming I had already ingested all of it by that point. And then the cops took me and Amy to the ER, and there was a doctor there. And basically, all that he did is he hooked up some sort of machine all over me that showed me what my heart was doing. He told me my heart rate was high, but I wouldn't have a heart attack. And he said that there was nothing that could be done about my extremely uncomfortable high, except I had to wait it out. And then they sent me back to my dorm. They didn't really help me at all, besides just telling me that I wouldn't die. And they also sent me a $3,000 bill for the visit and for the heart thing. And let me tell you, that $3,000 bill fucking sucked. That was a lesson. So we went back to the dorm. I did my best to sleep away the rest of the high, which was still very uncomfortable at that point. My dorm room also got raided by the police, and they unfortunately found some of dude's alcohol. So that sucked, but I do believe I wasn't there at the time, so I'm not fully sure how this went, but I believe he admitted to them that he had alcohol, so he didn't really get in trouble for that, but it did suck that it got taken away. I didn't have anything for them to take, so I was fine in that regard. And also, very unfortunately, I did tell the ER doctor where I got the weed from. I told them that dude gave me the gummy. So that got put into the report, and then he got into trouble with me. And for that, I am very, very sorry, dude. But thankfully, we weren't punished that much. I just had to write a paper for Creighton University warning students about the dangers of weed. And all in all, I was obviously very naive and irresponsible for taking that gummy. And I hope that you understand that from this story. My advice for you is that if you ever take a drug or medicine, double check to make sure that you're taking the right dose or a dose that's appropriate for you. Otherwise, you might just end up taking a gummy or multiple gummies that get you escorted to the police by ER, that completely destroy your sanity for a good bit and that traumatize you with a horrible level of high that's really only understandable when you're experiencing it. Taking just a little bit of time to see exactly what it is that you're taking and also figuring out the dose can save you a world of trouble, and in some cases, it could even save your life. That's about all that I've got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed today's story time and learned from it. I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.